Rear Admiral J. Prout, U.S. Navy, a life member of MOAA and the husband of Mrs. Kathy Prout, a consummate advocate for survivors' issues, certainly exemplified the service that we honor today. Jay commanded the USS Carl Vinson Aircraft Carrier Battle Group. He had written and planned to deliver a speech in his hometown of Andover, Massachusetts on Memorial Day 1995, but was killed 12 days prior when the F-18 Hornet he was flying crashed during a training mission. Jay's speech was ready. A friend, Rear Admiral Tom Marfiak, delivered the speech as planned on Jay's behalf, and with Kathy's permission, I would like to share his remarks with you. Mr. Doherty, thank you. Mr. Lewis, members of the Patriotic Holiday Committee, thank you for inviting me to speak today. Veterans, most especially World War II veterans, in this 50th anniversary year of your sacrifice and victory. Family members of veterans, most especially those related to soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, or merchant Marines who gave up their lives in the service of our country. Fellow townsmen, this sailor is humbled by the privilege of returning to my hometown to speak on your behalf in honoring the memory of the heroes of my youth and the inspiration for my military service, our beloved war dead. The commemorations earlier this month of the 50th anniversary of victory in Europe and the 50th anniversary of victory in Japan commemorate ceremonies scheduled for Pearl Harbor the first week in September, have brought this Memorial Day into sharper focus than has been the case in recent years. This will not be the last time these World War II veterans mustered to salute their fallen comrades. Family members and friends will feel the pain of their loss until the day they leave this earth. But this is likely to be the last time that collectively, we, as citizens of this town and of this nation, will pay special and specific tribute to the 60 men from Andover, shipmates, comrades in arms, buddies, husbands, fathers, sons, brothers, nephews, cousins, sweethearts, classmates, and teammates who were killed in action in World War II or who died as a consequence of that conflict. I ask you to join me, as well, in remembering and saluting those wounded in that war, both physically and psychologically. Similarly, please take a moment to think of, thank, and comfort those family members and friends who suffered the loss of a loved one. Before moving to Andover when I was 7, I had spent much of my life in my grandparents' home in Belmont. It was a typical lower middle, upper working class home. My grandparents were first-generation born Irish Americans. My grandfather left school after the 8th grade to support his family. My grandmother was the first among her extended family to graduate from high school, preceding Patrick Ewing by a few years as the star basketball player and team captain at Cambridge's Ridge Technical High School. My grandparents never owned nor drove a car. As with most couples in those circumstances, their hope, pride, and ambition was wrapped up in their children. By the time I was born in January 1944, their oldest daughter, my godmother, Aunt Margaret, had finished secretarial school, gone to Washington to work in the war effort, and met and married a chief petty officer who had survived the sinking of the battleship Oklahoma, which had capsized at Pearl Harbor. My mother, the second child, after a year in college, had married her high school sweetheart when my dad got temporary respite from the North Atlantic convoy duty for his mother's funeral. 50 years ago today, both Dad and Uncle Keith were serving in the Western Pacific. Mom and Aunt Margaret were back living with their parents, and the house in Belmont proudly displayed the gold star in the window at the foot of the staircase. The family's pride and joy, my Uncle Paul, class secretary of the Belmont High School class of 1943, top student, soccer team halfback, hockey captain, and twice Greater Boston Interscholastic League All-Star defensiveman, and the right-handed pitching star of the state high school and American Legion state baseball champions. A happy, handsome boy, a beloved son, brother, brother-in-law, classmate, and friend, had been killed by German mortar fire in the Ardennes in December of 1944. I was, of course, too young to be immediately aware of the tragedy that had befallen the family, where I reigned supreme as a first grandchild. But I was there when the dreaded telegram was delivered, when the simple, eloquently kind letter came from Paul's company commander, when the ship returning his body from the American cemetery in Belgium docked in New York, when the family held his wake in the living room, when he was reburied in the Belmont Town Cemetery. I was there on many a Sunday when my grandparents had friends or family drive them out to care for the grave, plant fresh flowers, and say a prayer. I was there when high school teammates came calling to the house, where they had known only laughter and hope for the future, and now could only remember, offer consolation, and speculate about what might have been. I was there for the memorial masses at St. Joseph's Church. I was there when the town of Belmont dedicated the new Belmont High School field house in Paul's name. And I was there with my grandparents for many a Memorial Day ceremony such as this. I was there when my grandfather lovingly pasted mementos of these events in a scrapbook, when my grandmother opened the drawer in the dresser and sighed as she fingered the baseball uniforms, the American Legion Drum and Bugle Corps hat, and the high school graduation watch that they had saved so long to buy. And I was there when my grandparents kissed me goodbye with looks of speechless longing as I left for my own combat tour in 1968. I have personalized this memorial not to single out one soldier who wasn't from Andover, but to lead us all away from the tone in which these ceremonies occasionally take on. The collective, all too easily mechanical, thanks for dying for us, whoever you are, a tip of our hat to the nameless, faceless group who died in some long-ago war. Each of Andover's 60 killed in action, each of our severely wounded, every one of our Andover veteran comrades who suffered similar fates, earned their right to an individual, personalized memorial that I can only symbolize here today. I treasure the memory of my shipmates who died in combat. Not a week goes by that I don't think of Bubba Bruton's lopsided smile, miserable basketball skills and quiet courage, and leadership by example. I think of picking up the remains of Bruce McFarland's lifeless body, just hours after we had shared a root beer, of my last conversation with Jim Thames, Doug Vaughn, Dick Pershing, Derek Brooks, and Vinnie Lee. Not a day went by that my grandparents didn't think of their son. Our Andover veterans and other Andover families harbor and nurture equally vivid personal memories. For them, our war dead and maimed are individual faces, treasured moments, a special look, a never repeated touch. Collectively, on behalf of all your fellow townsmen, on behalf of a grateful nation, we who gather here today with you thank you for your sacrifices. A sacrifice which in a moment of great national peril preserved our country and its great hope for all on this earth. Your pride in your own service and sacrifice, your pride in those with whom you served, your pride in those whom you lost is our pride and inspiration. God bless our veterans. God bless our war dead. God bless and comfort their families. God bless and protect our servicemen and women serving around the world today. And God bless and preserve the United States of America.